The autumn morning in Portland. Men carried the crisp scent of fallen leaves. As antique appraiser Sarah Mitchell stepped into the Victorian home on Elm Street, the Whitmore estate sale had drawn collectors from across New England. Sarah's trained eye immediately focused on a small collection of photographs displayed on an ornate mahogany table. Among the sepia-toned portraits and family gatherings, one photograph caught her attention. It was a formal studio portrait from 1914 featuring a well-dressed family of four. His stern-looking father in a dark suit, a woman in an elegant white blouse with her hair pinned in the Gibson girl style, and two young children, a boy of perhaps 8, and a girl no older than 5. The photograph bore the embossed mark of Hartwell Studios, Boston, indicating it was taken at one of the city's most prestigious photography establishments. The family appeared prosperous, their clothing suggesting upper-middle-class status during the pre-war era. Lifted the silver frame, examining the image more closely. The composition was typical of the period, the father standing behind his seated wife, children positioned formally beside them, yet something about the mother's posture seemed unusual. While the rest of the family gazed directly at the camera with the expected stoic expressions of the time, the woman's left hand was positioned oddly, her fingers curved as if concealing something. "Interesting piece, isn't it?" came a voice behind her. An elderly woman approached, introducing herself as Margaret Whitmore, the great-granddaughter of the home's original owners. "Do you know anything about this family?" Sarah asked, her professional curiosity piqued. Margaret shook her head. "That photograph came with some other items we inherited. I believe it belonged to a family named Patterson. Beyond that, I'm afraid I know nothing about their story." Sarah studied the image once more. That peculiar positioning of the mother's hand nagged at her instincts. Back in her downtown Portland office, Sarah placed the photograph under her professional magnifying equipment. Years of appraising antiques had taught her that the most valuable discoveries often lay in the smallest details others overlooked. As she adjusted the focus and lighting, the image became startlingly clear. The father's mustache was perfectly waxed, the children's clothes pressed and spotless. But it was the mother's hand that drew Sarah's complete attention. Between the woman's fingers, barely visible in the original viewing, was the edge of something white. It appeared to be paper, a small piece, carefully concealed, yet not entirely hidden from the camera's lens. The way her fingers curved suggested she was holding it deliberately, perhaps hoping it would go unnoticed in the formal portrait. Sarah's pulse quickened. In her 15 years of appraising historical items, she'd learned that people often hid significant things in plain sight, especially during times of social upheaval or personal crisis. The year 1914 was particularly significant. It marked the beginning of World War I, a time when families across America faced uncertainty and difficult decisions. She photographed the detail with her high-resolution camo and enhanced the image on her computer. The white object became slightly more distinct, appearing to be folded paper, though its contents remained a mystery. Sarah reached for her phone and dialed her colleague, Dr. James Reed, a historian specializing in early 20th century American social history at the University of Southern Maine. "James, I have something that might interest you," she said, her voice containing the excitement she always felt when uncovering a potential historical mystery. "It's a 1914 family portrait, but there's something the mother is hiding in her hand, something she clearly didn't want others to see, yet couldn't bear to let go of completely." "Send me the images," James replied immediately. 1914 was a pivotal year. Families were dealing with everything from economic uncertainty to the looming war. Whatever she was hiding might tell us a remarkable story. Dr. James Reed examined the high-resolution images Sarah had sent, his historian's mind immediately recognizing the potential significance of the hidden object. The formal nature of studio portraits in 1914 meant that every element was carefully controlled. Nothing appeared by accident. "The Hartwell Studios mark is our first real clue," James explained to Sarah during their meeting at the university. Via door, Hartwell ran one of Boston's most exclusive photography studios from 1895 to 1925. His client records, if they still exist, might help us identify this family. James had spent the morning making calls to various Boston historical societies and archives. The Massachusetts Historical Society confirmed they had acquired Hartwell's business records in 1967, including appointment books and client information, and driving to Boston tomorrow. Sarah announced this mystery won't solve itself. The next morning, Sarah found herself in the climate-controlled archives of the Massachusetts Historical Society. The Hartwell Studios collection filled 3 large boxes containing appointment ledgers, client correspondence, and photographic plates. She began with a 1914 appointment book, scanning through months of entries. Under March 15, 1914, she found it. Patterson Family Portrait, 200 p.m. Pemon, $12.50 premium sitting. The entry included an address 145 Beacon Street, Boston. The premium sitting notation suggested this was a wealthy family who could afford Hartwell's most expensive services. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she photographed the entry. The next step would be researching the Patterson family at that address. But she sensed she was on the verge of uncovering something significant. A librarian approached her table. "Finding what you're looking for?" "I think so," Sarah replied. Now I need to find out who the Pisonans were and what a mother might have felt. Compelled to hide in her hand during what should have been a joyful family portrait, the weight of the mystery pressed upon her as she prepared to delve deeper into the Patterson family history. The Boston Public Library's genealogy department became Sarah's next destination. Armed with the address from Hartwell's records, she began piecing together the Patterson family story through city directories, census records, and newspaper archives. The 1910 census revealed the family's composition. Thomas Patterson, age 42, listed as a textile merchant, his wife Ella, age 36, son William, age unspecified, and daughter Catherine, age 5. The family employed 2 servants, indicating substantial wealth during Boston's textile boom. Thomas Patterson owned Patterson and Associates, a successful textile importing business with connections to mills throughout New England. The company specialized in fine fabrics from European manufacturers, making the Pattersons prominent members of Boston's merchant class. But as Sarah delved deeper into 1914 newspaper archives, she discovered troubling information. The Boston Globe from February 1914 contained a small business section notice. Patterson and Associates faces difficulties amid changing European trade conditions. More concerning was an item from the Boston Herald dated March 10, 1914. Just 5 days before the family portrait, local textile merchant Thomas Patterson, questioned by federal investigators regarding suspected irregularities in import documentation. Sarah's heart raced. The family had sat for their expensive portrait while under federal investigation. This context gave new meaning to Ella Patterson's hidden object. What did she conceal in her hand during what might have been their final family portrait as a prosperous Boston family? The reference librarian, noticing Sarah's intense focus, approached her table. "Are you researching the Patterson textile scandal?" she asked quietly. Dots looked up, surprised. "You know about it. It's a fascinating case study." Thomas Patterson was eventually convicted of customs fraud in 1915. The family lost everything: their home, the business, their social standing. Ella Patterson. She paused dramatically. She disappeared shortly after the trial. Some say she fled to Canada with the children. Others believe something more tragic occurred. Sarah felt a chill. Whatever Ella Patterson had hidden in her hand during that March 1914 portrait suddenly seemed far more significant than a simple family memento. Sarah's research took her to the National Archives branch in Boston, where federal court records from 1914 to 1915 were housed. The Patterson case file was surprisingly thick, containing investigation reports, witness statements, and evidence documentation. The case against Thomas Patterson revealed a complex web of customs fraud spanning 3 years. He had been systematically underreporting the value of imported textiles, avoiding thousands of dollars in federal tariffs. The scheme involved for documentation and bribery of port officials. But as Sarah ran deeper into the investigative reports, she discovered something unexpected. Federal agents had suspected Ella Patterson of being more than an innocent bystander. A Treasury Department memorandum dated March 8, 1914 stated, "Evidence suggests Mrs. Ella Patterson maintained separate financial records and correspondence related to the import scheme. Recommend immediate search of family residence." The search had been scheduled for March 16, 1914. One day after the family portrait, Sarah's pulse quickened as she realized the timing. Ella Patterson had known federal agents were coming to search their home. The family portrait on March 15 wasn't just a formal family photograph. It was taken on the last day of their life as they knew it. In the evidence inventory from the March 16 search, Sarah found a crucial detail.
Searched premises thoroughly. No additional documentation recovered. Subject may have destroyed or concealed relevant materials prior to search. The picture was becoming clearer. Ella Patterson had hidden something in her hand during the portrait, possibly evidence she couldn't bear to destroy, but dared not leaving the house. The photograph itself might have been her way of preserving proof of whatever she was protecting. The folder marked unrecovered evidence caught Sarah's attention. Inside, she found a handwritten note from the lead investigator. Mrs. Patterson claimed ignorance of her husband's activities, but witness reports suggest she was present during several suspicious meetings with foreign contexts. Her knowledge of the family's financial affairs appears extensive. Sarah photographed every relevant document, her mind racing with possibilities about what Ella Patterson had concealed that March afternoon in 1914. Quote, "Transcripts from Thomas Patterson's 1915 trial provided Sarah with a disturbing picture of the family's final months. Ella Patterson had testified briefly on her husband's behalf, maintaining her innocence and claiming no knowledge of the customs fraud. But more intriguing were the witness statements Sarah found buried in the case files. Margaret Donnelly, the Patterson family's former housekeeper, had provided testimony that was never used in court. Mrs. Patterson was always writing letters, especially to people overseas. She kept a special writing box that she locked antids before Mr. Patterson's rest. She burned many papers in the fireplace, stow another witness. *8 neighbor named Robert Sinclair had observed strange behavior the night before their portrait sitting. I saw Mrs. Patterson in her garden very late, near midnight. She appeared to be burying something beneath the rose bushes. The most chilling testimony came from Catherine Patterson's schoolteacher, Miss Helen Rogers. After Mr. Patterson's rest, Eleanor came to collect Catherine from school. She seemed distraught and kept saying, "I have to protect what matters most." That was the last time anyone at the school saw either mother or daughter. Sarah's research into disappearance revealed that she and the children had simply vanished in April 1915. Shortly after Thomas's conviction, police reports indicated they had left their Beacon Street home with only personal belongings, leaving no forwarding address. William Patterson, the 8-year-old son, had been enrolled briefly in a school in Burlington, Vermont, in May 1915, but records show the family left there after only 2 weeks. After that, the trail went completely cold. The Boston Police Department had conducted a missing persons investigation, but it was concluded that Eleanor had likely fled to avoid the scandal and potential charges of her own. No evidence of foul play was found. As Sarah read the final police report dated December 1915, one line stood out. Mrs. Patterson's disappearance appears voluntary. However, her knowledge of her husband's criminal activities and possible possession of undiscovered evidence makes her a person of continued interest to federal authorities. Whatever Eleanor Patterson had hidden in her hand that day in 1914, it had been important enough to risk everything to protect her. Sarah's breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While researching Eleanor Patterson's disappearance, she had posted inquiries on several genealogy websites. 3 days after her Boston Archives visit, she received an email from a woman named Ruth Caldwell in Burlington, Vermont. "I believe my grandmother may have been Catherine Patterson." Well, she always claimed her real name was Catherine, but she went by Carol Caldwell her entire adult life. She died in 1995, but she left behind some items that might interest you, including what she called her mother's secret. Sarah immediately called Ruth, her hands shaking as she dialed. Ruth was a retired teacher in her 70s, the granddaughter of the little girl from the 1914 photograph. Grandmother rarely spoke about her early childhood. Ruth explained during their phone conversation. She said her father had been involved in some kind of trouble and that her mother had saved important papers. She kept a small metal box her entire life, claiming it contained proof of the truth. Ruth agreed to meet Sarah the following day in Burlington. That evening, Sarah could barely sleep, wondering what Eleanor Patterson's secret might reveal after more than a century. The next morning, in Ruth's cozy Burlington home, Sarah finally saw Catherine Patterson's legacy. The metal box was small, about the size of a jewelry box, with initials EP engraved on the lid, Eleanor Patterson. Inside, carefully wrapped in oiled cloth, were several items. *, a letter addressed to Catherine, a small photograph, and 3 folded documents that appeared to be official papers. "Grandmother made me promise to keep these safe," Ruth said softly. She said someday someone would come looking for the truth about what really happened to her family. She always maintained that her mother was innocent and that her father had been protecting someone else. Sarah's hands trembled as she carefully unfolded the letter Eleanor had written to her daughter. The handwriting was elegant but hurried, and the date was March 15, 1914, the same day as the family portrait. "My dearest Catherine," the letter began, "if you are reading this, then the truth has finally come to light." With Ruth's permission, Sarah carefully read Eleanor Patterson's letter aloud, both women hanging on every word from the past. "My dearest Catherine, if you are reading this, then the truth has finally come to light. Your father is not the criminal the government believes him to be. The real perpetrator of the customs fraud is his business partner, Jonathan Harwick, who has been using your father's name and forged his signature on documents for over years. I have proof of Jonathan's guilt. Correspondence between him and corrupt port officials, forged copies of your father's signature, and financial records showing payments made from accounts your father never knew existed. Jonathan threatened our family when your father began questioning discrepancies in the business. He said, if we exposed him, he would ensure your father was convicted of crimes that could result in prison or even deportation. Today, we sat for what may be our final family portrait. Hidden in my hand was the key to a safety deposit box at the First National Bank of Boston.